Good morning. Nice to see everybody. Good afternoon, wherever you are. I don't know if we've got people. Well, I see Warren, who I know is on the east side of the Atlantic. So good afternoon and good morning to everybody. We'll get going here. There is no, there's no specific topic to this. Are there burning questions people are dealing with right now? Things that things they're working on. Obviously, if there's anything pressing, let's definitely get to that. But
one thing I wanted to comment was that's from the BIMS meeting, but Jim Sinkinson, who we're having on the Slack channel, did a presentation there, and a couple of my BVR marketing people sign onto that, and they were just once again kind of head over heels that somebody cared enough to focus on what they do. And so there, just a reminder that during these days where it's sort of confusing and people are working from home, bringing in some really high level professional education just is one of the greatest motivational things you can imagine. So and particularly with marketing, where there's a long discussion on the session about, I got to get this email out by 5 o'clock today. And then when you read it the next day, the subject line is kind of blah and the copy's kind of blah, just the pressure we're all under. So just a reminder to all of us on the call, we all need something to keep our energies enlivened these days, and that was a good fix for me.
Yeah, that's a really good point, David. And the reality, you're not hiring a consultant for whatever the consultant's fee is, and then having to pay travel for them and all of that. In some ways, to get an outside expert in for an hour or 2 hours, maybe it's 3 hours, but it's still, it's much smaller footprint, but it still is an opportunity to kind of get some new fresh eyes, a new perspective. Jim is great. Stephanie, we're basically sold out on that boot camp in January, right, with Jim?
I think we have one more spot. I'll check and let you know in a minute.
Okay, but if that's successful, we will do that again, and I can't imagine why it wouldn't be successful. But yeah, that's a good point, and maybe we can use the Slack, the marketing channel in Slack if there are people you've engaged before who were inspirational, who were really helpful in helping figure things out, whether it's sort of product positioning or pricing or copywriting or whatever, share them there. It would be great to get kind of a speakers bureau that we could call up, whether there are people that are willing to do this for free, or people you may have to, your company may have to pay a fee to. This is a good opportunity to do that, I think. We're not getting out for all these same kinds of professional development opportunities we usually do. Thanks, David. And yeah, other things, I don't know. I don't know how many other people were at the BIMS conference last week, but there may be some interesting things that came out of that. But Steve, I see your hand up, so we'll go. You'll put you at the head of the line.
So last Thursday night, Google had an algorithm change. They have these big core updates twice a year, and it really reshuffles the deck on search engine rankings and things of that nature. You got big winners, big losers, and everything in between. And so I didn't know if everyone was aware or if they were aware, because it's one of those things, Google stopped giving people the handbook on what they're doing. because they're tired of people gaming the system, right? So they just like basically Google's saying, hey, how about you guys make a good website and stop screwing around? That's basically their advice to everybody, which by the way is good advice.
Yes. I mean, in general, and that is, and Steve, for those who aren't familiar with you, you do amazing. I'm not sure if everybody's. Where are we getting this background noise? Okay, you have amazing organic search traffic and volume. So
I had.
okay, I was going to say when Google sneezes, you definitely feel it.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Yeah.
And let me clarify that. I mean, like, the crying is over, but I'm talking like 70% drop.
ooh,
Yeah.
So-
So, but just mathematically speaking, I had grown 150% over the previous 2 months, and so it's like it was all taken back, right? So it's like Christmas morning was taken back,
yeah,
right? Like mommy and daddy are broke, and they're taking all the presents back to the store.
we're
right?
selling your Tickle Me Elmo.
Yeah. So
Give it.
in the grand scheme of things, I can't complain too much, but it was a rough wake up call, and we're scrambling on this side to figure out what's going on, because here again they don't give a handbook. So I'm just curious if anyone else has looked into this and what their theories were in terms of what Google did or did not do.
Was that organic growth
This search engine traffic.
Yeah,
as opposed to paid growth though?
yeah,
Yeah, I right now I have no paid traffic, right? So that's something that I'm certainly looking into getting into in the future. But yeah, we're talking straight up organic, so yeah, just curious if anyone else has been investigating what happened.
Steve, a little over a year ago, year and a half ago now, we had a similar kind of thing. We didn't fall off a cliff quite the way you did. Ours was much more gradual, but extended.
Yeah.
You know, we had the same kind of fall, but it wasn't quite as fast.
Yeah, this is a Band-Aid. Yeah.
And we did. I mean, I do take my general thoughts on SEO are, at the end of the day, Google for the most part is looking for content that is just providing the value, fulfilling the promise. And in general, I do think, if you do that over time, Google rewards you. And,
Yes,
and for all of us publishers, we have a huge advantage. But then they will tweak things that will suddenly have, one little thing that offends them. And Linda, you want to talk about some of the things we did to kind of climb out of the hole that we made our way into a year ago?
Yeah, sure. Well, we tend to get hit with a lot of these updates. The being in finance, often your
Yes.
money or your life kind of
Mhm.
sites see
Yes.
a lot more. And what we tend to do is we buckle down to basics. That's really important. Make sure that the different pages are optimized for on-page SEO. All the things like keywords, things like internal linking for the website, just making sure the website in general is in good shape really is part of the key. We're lucky in that our content is just naturally good. We have experts writing for us, and it's used for marketing, but it's not marketing copy. It's
Okay.
good copy. So that always helps us get out of holes. We actually use, I think Ed has talked about here, Makota as our partner, and they have a template, an SEO template that they've seen over time that when you follow these certain steps, it tends to help you. So we go back to basics and we look at those. And in general, most of our traffic, and this is probably true for most of your websites, comes from a limited number of posts. So we make sure to go back and make sure that those are properly optimized, because then you can see a big difference there. But yeah, to some degree, when Google makes changes, all you can do is just make sure you're putting forward the best quality that you can, and hopefully you'll see it return.
And Linda, Steve is also in our field, but those of you who aren't in finance, investing or health, that the whole your money or your life thing at Google, and Stephanie, I don't know if you experience it on your side. I know we did when I was at Harvard Medical School. We certainly did. Google has sort of a more stringent set of rules for people if you're talking about health or finances. So there can be things that can be relatively trivial to everybody else, and suddenly worlds are being turned upside down in the investing and health publishing areas. Yeah, David.
Did Lloyd, maybe from your question, maybe you've noticed this, but I was searching a term in our area around valuation, business valuation, which is what we do, and the first page of Google results was 100% paid. That's the first time.
Yeah.
You had to go to page 2 to get a natural search. And of course that leads you to think, okay, now I've got no choice. Now I got to send more money to Google as if they need it. But, they seem to have kind of lost their bearings a little bit, not only in reorganizing the metric, but also just in pure rampant greed. But
yeah.
I don't know, Lloyd, have you had any luck getting around that at all, or just paid?
I think it also depends on what search term, what is the question that you want to be the answer to. So if you're trying to compete on something that you just can't compete against, maybe start trying to compete on something else instead and build up a portfolio of answers to questions. The sort of industry like that our software sits in, we're quite lucky actually that we don't have any competitors, so we don't have anybody competing against us on any of our organic search terms. But that can actually work against us as well, because we can be quite complacent in that we maybe don't have the best portfolio of what people are searching for to be able to find our software, and it's something that we're ramping up quite a lot. We only have a dozen of terms at the minute that we're organically looking to reach upon, when in reality we should probably have hundreds. So
yeah.
So I'm sorry, I think I missed it when Steve, you were saying, so Google pushed a change yesterday, and do we know what that change is?
The change was Thursday night, December the 3rd.
Last Thursday, okay.
And so you'd mostly see it in the starting Friday of last week. So it's almost been a full week at this stage. I'll just give it 2 cents of what we're finding on our side, meaning like taking a look at what some of the global people have said, that given most rollouts take 2 weeks, the fact that almost all the changes happen immediately tells the experts that it was almost all about linking and not about the actual content. And so therefore, if it's about linking, then it's about authority, right? So the idea of the domain authority, the trustworthiness, quality of it, and the company you keep, right? So that is one of the toughest games for a short. That is very difficult to fix in the short run, right? You can't fake that one, right? And then they know all the games you could possibly play to fake it, right? So that's interesting because so it was a case of the rich got richer. So Ed, like Motley Fool got richer, Investopedia got richer.
Oh, good.
Right? And then everyone else who doesn't have that kind of domain authority, the poor got poor, and that's why it was such a dramatic shift. So I would just recommend that if you haven't looked at it, it's just one of those things to look at internally, how your search engine stuff looks starting, I would say, Friday of last week, and hopefully you came out a winner. If you came out a loser, then just start taking a look at some of the things in your specific industry, what you could change, because now's the time to do so.
And 2 thoughts. One is, David, your experience on the search results. I have been noticing more and more searches I'm doing on Google. It's hard to find organic results. that there's stuff over on the right, there's the stuff at the top, there are boxes in the middle. I mean, they're definitely squeezing the organic. I had some slight hope when now that the government is starting to make rumblings about Facebook maybe being slightly too powerful. But seriously, you know, maybe the government is starting to get a backbone here on antitrust stuff, and
Yeah.
you know, if you're looking at Facebook, how can you not also be looking at Google? It would be nice to have, I mean, those of us who can't outbid everybody else for all those words and make it anywhere near the first page, you know, organic was at least a great leveler. Anybody can produce good content. But
Yeah. You're right about the brand. What you just said, I've been getting Motley Fool at the top of the paid listings for the last week, even listings where they weren't really relevant. So there's definitely, it's frustrating to watch that happen because it's very far away from producing the best possible content.
right.
You know,
Not
we've
the-
seen our traffic drop like about 40% in the last 6 months. And what couple of things we've done, first of all, bringing on a person who's just going to focus on SEO and PPC and social, calling her my eyeball manager, just to bring more eyeballs to the site.
Okay.
Other things we're doing is improving our conversion procedures and looking at our metrics, and also getting a better handle. We're pretty good, but we can always be better on the value of an organically acquired name. We're not advertising driven, so we have to decide, you know, obviously we hate the drop in traffic, but could we be spending our money better elsewhere if those organic names are just tire kickers? And if they are, then maybe we're doing something else wrong in the conversion and onboarding process. But yeah, I'm really amused by all you altruists being upset that a company wants to make money. We got, you know, yeah, PPC has to be a part of the mix, and just having one person who's devoted a lot of their time. I mean, we used to look at our keywords, you know, twice a year, and now that's got to be an ongoing process.
Yeah.
Because I think if you look at your numbers, look in the long term, and not only see the payback rate, but also look at the lifetime value of an organically acquired name versus a PPC acquired name, socially acquired name, we still do a fair amount of direct mail, and we know that, you know, it's easier to do that metric. You can figure out the lifetime value of a direct mail acquired name. I think we need to focus that same way on the quote unquote free names we're acquiring and decide where you should make your investment.
Yeah. And Adam, I know you're just kidding, but the objection isn't about Google making money. It's about them leveraging monopoly power to squeeze money, you know, squeeze more money. They can be as profitable as they want, as far as I'm concerned. That's not the issue. But when they're you know, everybody, so many people count on them, and they can screw people up at a whim. I think there's a basis there's a reason for that there are antitrust laws in place.
No less a monopoly than Facebook, certainly.
Yeah. But the other thing, Steve, I wanted to mention, one of the things, you know, if links have become important, links to me are one of the main reasons to use social media. So, you know, I think, again, there's no overnight, you know, solution to it, but getting things out on Twitter and Facebook and LinkedIn, so more people start linking to you
we have a call tomorrow morning. So I have you know, a consultant / business partner, because he has a revenue share component, you know, and so he's gathering the fact there's been 600 emails, and tomorrow morning we're having the conversation, because you don't want to jump too early. You don't want to start running at the solution too early, when here again the problem is so unclear and fuzzy. But you know, the facts start to come together. But yeah, social media is certainly one of the ones that came up in the conversation as to leading cause. So we already automatically put all of our articles on Stock Choice. That was a pretty early one. But yeah, we're not doing anything on Facebook, not doing anything on Instagram. Maybe we just got to put up pictures of me, like in, you know, Speedos, like on Instagram, and we'll give stock advice. Maybe that's what people want to see. I'm seeing people shaking their heads like, no, no.
Steve, you had me till Speedo.
Yeah.
That may work against you though,
Yeah.
because one of the core changes that happened a few years ago was to stop all the black hat link building companies just throwing links around all over the internet. They refocused it to not be about links anymore, but about traffic. So if you're actually putting out a lot of content and not getting any traffic to it, it actually works against you.
Good. The stock twits one I think works fairly well enough because here again that's an appropriate audience, you know, for the message and things of that nature. But yeah, I hear you on the rest of it. Yeah, right. They know what hollow tactics are, and here again they're just trying to pound the table. It's like, here again, how about you guys do something that helps consumers, right? Make a good site, do good stuff, and everything else will fall into place. But yeah, the other thing that, as David was saying, there was also the belief that more of the first page is being taken by Google. And so in other words, our search engine rankings did not move by that much to explain it. And so therefore, but if home first page real estate is being squeezed, everyone's being squeezed out and you drop to the top of the second page, that's a big difference.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, used to be able to count on 10 organic results on the page one, and if it's down to 2 or 3, your position 5 has disappeared. Yeah.
There must be very competitive search terms that you're looking at there, though.
And in a highly fragmented business, you know, there's no 800-pound gorilla in our business. You know, there's many players vying for those spots.
Yep, and yeah, in the investing world, you're competing against banks and insurance companies and other publishers, and and even just general publishers. You know, Wall Street Journal and USA Today can be competing on things. So it's
Have you looked into long tail search terms? People are getting much more specific now and much more clever about what they actually search for. And I think it may actually play into the advantage as well. If the first page is just full of promoted ads and people aren't getting the answer to the question, they'll be more specific about what they search for.
Yeah, we'll look into that. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, we definitely have had good success with 3, 4, 5 word keyword phrases. So yeah.
I think maybe even longer, Ed. I don't know, you know, like we used to say, if the name of your product is 7 words and somebody types in those 7 words, then you know you're going to get a hit. But I think there is a point where the content marketing component that drives SEO is just going to become unapproachable for most people, I think. So I just read the link that was posted, which is fantastic. I mean, wow, Google really changed something. I didn't realize it was that dramatic. So thanks for posting that link.
And Lloyd, Stephanie shared that on the renewed Slack marketing channel as well. So thanks for providing that. I think that'll be a great resource for people.
No problem. I didn't write it. I just found it yesterday, so it's just coincidence.
Great addition to the conversation. Anything more people want to talk about SEO or pay-per-click?
Well, there's due to be a big update that Google has actually talked about, is user experience in May. That's going to be happening. And that's they announced that one because I want people to make these changes.
They want people to have 6 months of sleepless nights.
What they're planning to factor in, like what are they looking at for user experience, like bounce rate and page time on page? What does that mean exactly from Google's perspective?
They want you to have your site to be a good user experience. So they don't want to see pages that take a long time to load. Okay. They don't want to see ads that load and that they keep moving your text. You're trying to read something and it keeps bouncing around because of that. It's just They want it to be a smooth experience for the user. And they announced it way ahead of time to give people a chance to look at things like this. They talk about the, what is it? Core Web Vitals report, which is something that you can access and see what they are seeing here.
Yeah, wow.
I wonder if there's some tools for running a Core Vitals report or no, like.
It's
Page load time is actually something I think they put in a previous algorithm too, and mobile responsiveness I know was something they started looking at for SEO.
yeah, and it was funny because also our site has AMP, accelerated mobile pages, and they put a new requirement for AMP that images have to be 1200 pixels wide, which we had ended up just before they made that requirement. We shrunk all our images just to
improve load
make
time.
the page view do better. And then they change that. So things do change, but this, they have put this one out as a pretty strong suggestion for you to look at these things before the spring.
Yeah, that was really a fun one. We were shrinking down the images to improve load time, and then the AMP requirements are that the images have to be a certain size, and they were dinging us for having our images be too small.
Yep.
Our friends at Google. All right. Thanks. Good discussion. Anything else in the search area?
I don't have a lot. I'll just mention that we are having some good success on pay-per-click with Google Ads. So happy to also talk offline if anybody has specific questions. Well, I'm not, because I don't know anything, but Anna can help answer your questions. We've been, I think we're selling subscriptions and some of our like one-shot ancillary type products, and both are performing pretty well.
I might take you up on that, Stephanie. We're my comment might reveal how woefully behind we are on our search know-how, but we're still, I'm interested to hear if anyone is still relying on this as a metric, but we sort of celebrate when we come through on Google Alerts that we have set up. I mean, I think we've had David, I think we've, I'm Lucretia Lyons, by the way, with Business Valuation Resources together with David Foster. I mean, I think we've had these alerts set up for years now in place, and we sort of celebrate, we say, oh, we came through on the term, you know, how do I value my restaurant? And David and I always kind of pause like, oh, well, we created that alert. And not only that, but we don't really know what that means. Like, what is the alert indicating? Something was returned on that particular search term, but does just because our name maybe appeared in there, does that mean it was number one, or does that mean it was maybe one of thousands of results? So we sort of celebrate and then realize, well, not, you know, it's fun to celebrate anyway, but we're not really sure it's true cause celebrate there. So I don't know if anyone else is using alerts as any kind of indicator. And again, I might end up being very embarrassed that I even asked this question, but there you have it among family and friends.
To me, that actually seems like the best way of doing it now. I mean, back in the good old days, 10 years ago, I used to have a spreadsheet, and every day I'd search for the search terms and see where it listed on the rankings. But you just can't do that anymore, because once you've put your own data into it, it manipulates the rankings for you on a user basis. So if I search for the exact same search term as you, we won't get the same results. So as long as you're getting traffic from the search term, does it even really matter where you are anymore?
Right.
I don't know how you would even control that anyway.
But the alerts aren't really an indicator of any traffic, Lucretia. They're just an indicator that you've shown up on a page. So, you know, the alerts are really important if you're a PR firm, PR agency, and you're working for a client, and you've just got to be able to show, look at all these great hits we produce for you. The alerts are really important for them. And the alerts are important because they can make you feel good. They can make, you know, But they
As
don't,
I was saying, that
they
What,
don't
Ed,
necessarily
what-
correlate. So, you
What
know,
other reason is there, Ed?
so, well, an alert, it could be that it's something that drives huge traffic to you, or it could be something that drives nothing to you. So it's just not measuring that.
it's not measuring anything.
It's not measuring that. That doesn't mean it's not important, because it is still a feel good, like, oh, great, these guys wrote about us or posted our stuff or whatever. So
I misunderstood. I thought you were saying that you were measuring traffic. I didn't realize that you were measuring listings. Sorry.
yeah.
No, I use them too to see where we're mentioned elsewhere on the website. And I've in fact found people using our content on other websites
Right.
using the Google alerts, because they'll just scrape the whole thing, including our name. And then I'll see, and it will say, oh, this is posted on such and such a site that I've never even heard of. And so then you can ask, depending on what the situation is, you can deal with it.
And then Ed pretends to be a lawyer and sends them an email.
That's right. That is right.
Doesn't pretend to be a lawyer. I play a lawyer. That's I'm not presenting myself.
No, that's all very helpful. Thank you. If there was some bridge between it meaning nothing and Lloyd, what you're describing, and maybe we'll find something in between that will actually link it to something out there. But yeah, thanks.
Yeah.
Well, while we're on the topic of Google Alerts, this is certainly not a brilliant insight, but just I'll share it in case it's helpful. I use alerts for our largest customers and the largest potential customers, the ones we want to go after, so that I can see what's going on about them when they show up in the news or they make some big press release or announcement. That helps better for our current customers, helps me know what they're doing and thinking about and possibly changing. And then for the prospects, it gives me talking points for when we have our sales calls.
That's a great idea, Stephanie. I
was brilliant after all.
Well, I think about my first job in publishing. One of the things I used to do at Connor's Publishing Company a few years ago was what we used to call editorial mentions. And so we would send a copy of the issue of our newsletter with a letter saying, hey, did you know you were mentioned in this? But we would also look for things like, and basically back then we were checking trade magazines where they would list, things like promotions and, we hired this person for this, and we would send them a letter congratulating them. Hey, we saw you did this. And, in B2B lands where it's small communities, we picked up a lot of subscribers that way. It was a great way to introduce ourselves to people. So, and all it was me, a 20-year-old, sitting at a typewriter at that time, typing out letters. So
that's a great, so you could very easily incorporate that into the, SalesForce workflow or whatnot as a step in the setup, just create it's a great idea.
Yeah.
I think you've touched upon what I think is one of the most important things in marketing, is having a really good CRM system in the middle of everything. We've actually recently just left Salesforce, but having that central location, I think, is the most important thing of all things marketing.
Yeah.
Hey Lloyd, why did you leave Salesforce?
A mixture of things, a lot of it being just the expense, the cost of it was going up and up and up, and they didn't really facilitate our needs as well as they do for a lot of other companies, because we're not exactly fast-moving consumer goods. So they wanted to see us put in lots of sales information through there, and that's just not really the way that we worked. So we needed something a little bit more flexible. We eventually moved to Hubspot, which is much more marketing focused than Salesforce is. But it may have been our own fault because we didn't have Pardot, and that was the majority of our problem. So,
yeah.
HubSpot.
What?
I was just curious if Lloyd's happy with HubSpot.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry, I didn't hear that. Say that again.
Do you like HubSpot? Are you happy with that option?
I think HubSpot's fantastic. I mean, I was slightly biased because I'd already used HubSpot before. I already knew what it could do. I'd used it for a number of much smaller businesses in the past. This is the first time I'd ever used it at the size of the company that Content Catalyst is. just the entire suite of tools is just so user friendly that it just means that the whole team gets involved, and that's when it becomes really powerful, is when everybody in the company is using it. If it's just a select few people, it never works to its full potential.
Okay.
I'd be curious if people don't mind sharing, maybe pop in the chat, what CRM and or customer data platform you're using. We're actually considering looking at some different options next year. So like,
It's definitely interesting. Yeah, I will, but it's definitely interesting to hear that you've moved away from the CRM. We have Salesforce and Pardot. And what's been interesting is I've sort of felt, I'm starting to notice that over the years, Pardot's becoming less effective. Not anything wrong with this, just because we maximize those things. And I can't quantify that. So that's just a gut feeling, Lloyd, but you're right. It sort of leads you to question those things which are the essence of our business, really. I think we live and die off those two things. And Pardot is more expensive than Salesforce for us at this moment. So I tend to look more at Pardot, the expense ratio there just a little bit. I think our license with Pardot's maybe 20% higher than our license for the Salesforce seats we have.
Yeah.
Like Lucretia, I could be off a little bit.
It's a painful renewal every
Yeah.
January, unfortunately. So it's only a month away, but yeah, that sounds about right, David.
Marketing tools are always more expensive than sales tools, though. Salesforce is a sales tool and
Yes.
relies a lot more on the information you put in it, and the users actually using it properly. Whereas the marketing tools are a lot more based on automation and workflow and things like that, and require a lot more software engineering. So
Yeah.
I don't think any company would ever charge you less for a marketing tool than they would for a sales tool.
Yep.
And they're not. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
The marketing tools also come with their own, I mean, sort of talking about Google's algorithm. I feel like, and this is in no way a negative comment about our marketing team, but I feel like we still have yet to really maximize like the scoring definitions and everything within Pardot. I know it's powerful. I feel like we're kind of, justifying our renewal every year based on option value. Like, well, I know it can totally transform our marketing automation. One day we'll do it. But, as far as because obviously you can't just say, well, someone has a high Pardot score that translates into this person being a hot prospect. It doesn't work that way. It could actually mean mean quite the opposite if someone is bopping around, finding nothing and moving on. So anyway, my point being that so much of the marketing automation is also in the setup and how you customize it and tailor it to your particular needs. And that takes a lot of time. It takes business case analysis. And we've had it in place now for 6-7 years. And I don't feel like we're quite done with the task there.
If you do, you've probably done it wrong.
Exactly.
I don't think in marketing, you never get marketing right. You just always get it a bit better than you did before. If you ever feel that you've completed it, you've done it wrong.
Yes, words to live by, for sure.
Yeah, like Adam was saying earlier, you can always just go back and keep trying to refine the conversion rates, like whatever you
Just when you
do.
have all the answers in life, they change the questions on you.
Exactly. So Stephanie, it looks like you've got some contacts at least on things. Yeah, I forget the name of the book. The one about HubSpot as a sort of Silicon Valley startup. I read that years ago, and it's always colored my perception of HubSpot. But I know a lot of people swear by it. So. And it's certainly less expensive than Salesforce. But
yeah,
I think it depends on your business as well, though. If you've got a very sales-heavy business, Salesforce may be better. If you've got a very marketing-heavy business, HubSpot might be better. And also, HubSpot works quite well for us because they charge based on the number of contacts that you've got in the system, whereas Salesforce charges by the number of seats of people within your team. So we have a very low number of contacts because we're a very niche business, but we actually have quite a fairly decent sized team, which meant that for the exact same software, it was a lot cheaper to go for the software based on the number of contacts versus seats.
Yeah.
And I never liked the Salesforce sales method of it being based on seats either, because we just bought one seat and all shared it.
Right.
For us, we're the opposite because we have like 70,000 email names and one salesperson. So I'd rather pay per seat than.
Salesforce may be a better option then.
Yeah.
Yes.
We actually use
Totally
ClaritySoft,
depends, doesn't
which
it?
is really cheap.
Here's what, Stephanie?
ClaritySoft, which nobody has ever heard of. I don't know how we found it, but it was a lot of one of the things that's nice about it is very customizable, which means it's a lot of setup because it's sort of, it's like not right out the gate, but it's like crazy cheap. I think we spend like $1,200 a year on it or something.
Do you remember Robin and Victoria in the UK, just before they sold Melcorm, had switched from Salesforce to another CRM that they were like head over heels in love with. They thought it was, and I've forgotten the name now, but it was, I know they were paying like a third of what they're paying for Salesforce, and they felt they were getting all the bells and whistles. I've just forgotten the name. I'll ping them and ask, because I don't know what's happened there, but they loved it.
I see someone's asked about Microsoft Dynamics. That was there was quite a few different CRMs I looked into to weigh up the options as to which one would be the best one for us to take. I actually spent 6 months speccing them all out, and Microsoft Dynamics looked really good. It looked really flexible, and it could do everything that we wanted it to do and more. And it was very, very cheap in comparison, but it totally relied on having a partner who did all of the work, and we didn't want to be reliant on somebody else to do all of the work for us. We wanted to be able to manage it ourselves. And if anything went wrong, we wanted to be able to fix it immediately rather than have to ask somebody else who will get around to it at some point. It totally depends on the way that the system is set up and the way that the company works as well, whether it suits you. Some companies are probably very happy to just say, yeah, we'll just get the Microsoft Dynamics and have somebody who knows what they're doing look after it.
Well, a lot of it depends on the consultant too.
Yeah.
If you're lucky enough to have a good consultant, I mean, even with Salesforce at the beginning, we had a really good consultant, but then we started doing things with it that the consultant didn't know anything about. So we waste like two months having consultants who didn't have a clue what they were doing, try to upgrade our Salesforce installation. So then we had to move to another consultant to help us solve that and that sort of thing. So that, when you're dependent on those people, you're 100% dependent.
That happened to us with Salesforce as well.
Yeah.
Which is one of the other reasons why we left.
Yeah.
I have a question. This is Stacy. Can you not have an internal admin for Dynamics? I mean, you said you have to rely on an outside source.
I think you can not have one if you have somebody who's proficient in it and knows what they're doing. I think you maybe have to hire a developer though.
You'd have to hire a port. Okay, I got you. All right.
You'd have to just get the training done to,
Right.
Yeah, okay.
I think it's
so
a
we had to do that with
specialism.
Salesforce.
Yeah, we're looking at that because we're so ingrained. Everything we do is within Microsoft now. It just feels like it's the right thing to do.
Yeah.
And we've got Salesforce, and it doesn't feel right for the nature of your business. Lloyd, like you said, we're not an FMCG, so we don't move as quickly as perhaps. I probably only scratch the surface of the functionality of the platform. So we're looking at Dynamics, but it doesn't. I don't like CRM systems the best of the time. They're never that pretty to look at, are they? But if we invest in the training, make it work.
So we're kind of in the same boat with wanting to get off of Salesforce and considering Dynamics. Yeah, I guess I'm trying to wrap my brain around that migration. Can anyone speak to that? It just seems, I think I'm a little overwhelmed with even attempting it.
I'm with you, Stacey. It might be worth us having a conversation and sharing our woes.
Well, I've just moved the whole of our Salesforce platform over to HubSpot, and and I was a little bit panicking, justifying not only the expense and the time to my MD, who didn't really want me to do it, but I put forward the proposal and she was happy enough to do it. And then I said, oh, now that you've said yes, I'm going to actually have to do it. But when I came to do it, I didn't realize just how much of a breeze it was actually going to be. It was just a straight up API connection between the two systems, and I'd worried for nothing. So maybe don't do what I do and look into it first, how difficult it's going to be, and not worry about it.
Yeah, so we're either going to start over with Salesforce and just rebuild it from scratch, I think, because ours is very old and highly customized, or we're going to move. So we're trying to weigh the options between both of those.
Yeah, they're both big. They're both big deals. I mean, you think of all the IP we poured into those systems, and Stacy, you've had it for a long time. It gets harder and harder to switch. And I also like, if you're in a dynamics world, to work within that world is just going to solve so many problems. You know, like
that's my biggest, that's my biggest impetus for wanting to do this, for sure.
To stay. I mean, because again, Pardot was expensive, but we did Salesforce first. Then when we added Pardot, because it was an app on Salesforce, that was one of the easiest implementations that we've ever done. You know, and thank God those two work together so well, or whatever you do, whether it's HubSpot. I'm not advocating here at all, but if Pardot and Salesforce weren't talking together easily.
Did you use an implementation specialist to connect Pardot and Salesforce? Because they told me that you'd have to have an implementation specialist, and I kind of said, well, that's crazy. You own both of them. Why would you need an implementation specialist?
Yes.
And I never really pursued it after that, so I never really got the answer. How did that work?
We used the same implementation consultant for Pardot as we did for Salesforce. And I'll tell you, the engagement with Pardot, because we had set Salesforce up so carefully and thoroughly, was very quick with them. I didn't feel like we got, joined at the hip again or anything, or like it went on too long, because it's since Pardot is based so heavily on the Salesforce setup, it really was very painless.
Yeah, I recall it as being like, if we spent, 50,000 US to get Salesforce up and running, we spent 10 US on the Pardot. It was that kind of scale. So yes, we did need implementation support. But then going back to my earlier story, then when we tried to connect it to our web architecture, that was the next step. And that's when we stayed with that same consultant, and they didn't know anything about that. And then the wheels fell off. So, same thing. So Ed jumped off. So any other comments on this, or other? It sounds like a lot of people are thinking about major changes in these systems. So that there's a lot to talk about in that process, because the other disadvantage is it takes up all your key you need your CFO involved, you need all of your marketing staff involved. It changes, if you got salespeople, it changes the way they're working, and that's never pleasant. You really, my worry with these conversions, like Stacy, you were just saying, and Lloyd, you were saying, that it can be 3, 4, 5, 6 months where the key managers in the company are focused on the infrastructure rather than on the business. So there's some real risk around these things.
Yeah. Which is another, go ahead.
It depends whether it's worth it in the long run, doesn't it, as well, though? One of our major problems that we had is I was actually using a piece of software called Autopilot for marketing, and then the sales team were using Salesforce. The customer success team were using Zendesk. the finance department were using something else that I'd never heard of, and none of us ever spoke to each other about anything, and it always felt like an argument when I'd say, I've just sent you 1,000 leads, what are you doing? And it was like, we've got no one to call, what's going on? And the finance team are going, well, how are we supposed to know how much revenue we're going to make if you two won't agree on how many leads you can call? And putting everybody onto one platform just made everything so transparent that it was worth not doing any business as usual work for 6 months to just get it sorted and get it done.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah. Well, and one of the reasons we sort of just said, okay, let's go with SalesForce. We did look at a few other systems when we finally decided to commit to a CRM, but the sales team was so just effusively set on SalesForce. We decided, oh hell, let's just do that. It's going to cost a few extra dollars, but the you know, what we gained by that internal win was huge, because here we would have probably gone through a successful setup, right, and ended up with some system that they predetermined they hated, you know, and perception is reality. So it would have been a hate-worthy system, no matter if, you know, how great it was. So that factored in, you know, in a big way to our decision.
Yeah, that's a huge factor. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Stacy, how many people do you have working in those systems now?
On a regular basis, maybe 10. So I mean, we're small. So I mean, it's just the ones who are very, you know, it's been a long time. So that's a lot of it too.
Yeah. Any other comments on this, or any, I mean, a good couple of topics that require our attention, filling in for Ed since he had to jump off. So, you know, Steve, thanks for bringing up the Google thing. That's going to be a factor for a while. And it's interesting that so many of us on this call are having a sense that it's time to transition some of these infrastructure systems, so it's maybe there's some, you know, it's a sign of the times or something that, you know, as the business models change. So
it's probably no coincidence as well that everyone's looking to digital solutions at a time when everyone's so disparate from each other.
Yes.
Timing meets opportunity, right?
Well, even the I was joking earlier today that we've got the Airbnb IPO coming up, is it, and what's DoorDash, you know, and Steve, to your investment advisor, I was sort of say, when was the last time there was a profitable company that went public? I would like, do they do that anymore? It's always, you know, so I'm you know, I'm sure there were like 2 last week. I just didn't read about them or whatever, but
exactly right. The profitable ones are the ones you won't hear about, right? The ones that are vaporware, right? It's not vaporware, but the ones that have the most excitement, that people are extrapolating, you know, to the moon, the possibility that those are the overpriced. Tesla, which was IPO'd a long time ago. Tesla does make the best car in the world, but it's not worth this much money. This is not worth $600 a share, right? And it's that kind of craziness.
Further reinforcing that our businesses are the best ones to be in, right?
There we go.
Exactly. Yeah.
We are great.
Value every day and multiples below 1. I know.
If I ever want to be involved in going through an IPO or preparing for it, sounds like a nightmare.
No.
The little ones I know about.
Or hanging out with those kind of people. So,
that would be the worst part.
Well, listen, it sounds like a good thing. Thank you for bringing for some discussion around 2 very, very, very important topics. And I mean, to be able to get together in a group like this and hear what people are concerned about is a huge value to me. So thanks everyone for sharing. Keep active in the Slack channel, and And I look forward to getting together again next month, seeing what's up and how everybody's progressing.